Support WrestleTalk!
Donate on Patreon.
Will a star from SmackDown Live get fired? Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles have their Crown Jewel match early because Daniel Bryan pulled out of Crown Jewel, and Becky Lynch continues to rule. I am Luke Owen. Leave a comment down below for me to reply to after this video has gone live, and vote in the poll above my head to let me know what you thought of the show, where you can choose from Smackdown, Smacktastic, Smack Bang in the Middle, Ellsworthy, and a smack in the face. This is the 30th of October 2018 edition of SmackDown Live in about 4 minutes. AJ Styles opened the show to a thunderous hometown reaction, and he quickly called out his opponent for Crown Jewel, Daniel Bryan. After some heated words, AJ said he didn't want to wait for this coming Friday, and he wanted to have their WWE Championship match right now, with Shane McMahon coming out to make it official. This was WWE's way of writing Daniel Bryan out of Friday's Crown Jewel show, which he reportedly refused to work. Reports we can now safely assume were correct, as Styles defeated Bryan in their WWE Championship match that had been set up back at Super Showdown. This was a terrific match that took up the majority of the first half of this week's SmackDown Live, with Bryan working over AJ's arm to set up the yes lock, while AJ targeted Daniel Bryan's knee that he tweaked while doing a suicide dive. Styles channeled his inner Hiroshi Tanahashi by hitting various dragon screws, and after a series of awesome reversals, submissions, transitions, and counters, AJ locked in the calf crusher for the submission win. Bryan and AJ shook hands after the match, but were attacked by Samoa Joe from out of nowhere, who locked in the Kikina clutch on both men. Later in the show, AJ demanded that Paige make a match between himself and Joe at Crown Jewel, which is your new WWE Championship match this coming Friday, and Joe cut a promo directly to the camera, bringing up AJ's family once again. This was a more effective way of getting Bryan out of their Saudi Arabia plans than simply putting Bobby Lashley in the World Cup instead of John Cena. It also led to a really good match on TV, and sets up a potential three-way feud between AJ, Joe, and Bryan after Survivor Series. This was a tremendous start to the show. Speaking of Survivor Series, and Paige asked Charlotte Flair if she wanted to be the captain of Team SmackDown in the traditional 5-on-5 elimination match. To her credit, Flair insisted that she wasn't the right woman for the job, but Paige asked for her to at least think about it, which could be a really interesting story leading into Survivor Series. New Day came out next dressed up as the Brood for Big E's Trick or Street fight against Cesaro, which was a heck of a lot of fun. It broke down immediately with New Day clashing with Shomaro, which led to Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston spitting red viscous liquid in the face of the Big Show. Big E spat some red viscous liquid of his own and hit the big ending for the win. You know, some companies just cash in on Halloween just to get a cheap pop, and that's just really sad. Next up, we got all the SmackDown World Cup entrants standing in a row. Shane McMahon awkwardly introduced each of them in one of the worst staged backstage segments in quite some time, but then dropped a major bombshell. If the finalists from the SmackDown side of the World Cup to determine the best in the world at the global pay-per-view event known as Crown Jewel, that was my best Tom Phillips impersonation, they will be fired from the brand. This means after Friday, either Miz, Jeff Hardy, Rey Mysterio, or Randy Orton could be heading to Raw, or 205 Live, you don't know. It took them many weeks, and they waited until the final go-home show, but finally this World Cup has some actual stakes. Ty Dillinger was supposed to challenge Shinsuke Nakamura for the United States Championship, but he was declared injured, and so Nakamura had a bland non-title match against R-Truth instead. Nakamura won with the Kinshasa, which means, hold on, let me do some quick calculations. Carry the one. It's been 75 days since Nakamura won the United States Championship and hasn't had a storyline. I mean, he doesn't even have a throwaway match at Crown Jewel. Someone else who won't be at Crown Jewel is the SmackDown Women's Champion and one half of the Evolution match of the night, Becky Lynch. She came out to cut a very short but impactful promo on Ronda Rousey, who she will face in a champion versus champion match at Survivor Series. This was the same Becky we've seen since SummerSlam, but she didn't have the commentators trying to tell us what a bad person she is. So, fingers crossed, WWE will stop pretending she's an outright heel. With that said, it was slightly disappointing that after the historic all-women's pay-per-view just a couple of days ago, 95% of the SmackDown Live women's roster didn't feature on this show at all. And speaking of disappointing, the main event was a tag team match between the 4 SmackDown competitors in the World Cup to determine the best in the world at the global pay-per-view event known as Crown Jewel. You're welcome, Tom. This was an incredibly pedestrian tag team match that only picked up in the last couple of minutes when Jeff and Mysterio ran wild on The Miz. The good guys picked up the win, but Randy laid out everyone with RKOs to stand tall. You know, after that amazing WWE Championship match and the fun trick or street fight, I was almost ready to give this show a smackdown. But the second hour dragged with very little to write home about, with the exception of Becky Lynch awesomeness, of course. And it cannot be ignored there was very little follow-up to Evolution, which is a major disappointment considering how good that show was. With that said, the AJ Bryan match was great, Joe returned, we got to hear the Brood's music, and finally the World Cup has some sort of point. So, all in all, this week's SmackDown Live is a low smacktastic. Ollie Davis and I give our in-depth thoughts on this week's Monday Night Raw, which you can watch by clicking the Wrestle Ramble video on screen right now. And make sure you've picked up your tickets to see WrestleTalk live in London in a couple of weeks. I've been Luke Owen, and that was wrestling.